Welcome to another episode in Onfleet's Partner Spotlight. Today, we are meeting with one of Onfleet's longest-serving employees, Dave Yoha, who is a manager on Onfleet's customer success team. Dave has an interesting background in the delivery business, in part as he spent many years as a bike courier and running his own bike courier business. So when he says he's been in the delivery driver or dispatcher's shoes, he really knows what he's talking about.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Dave Yoha. I am a strategic customer success manager here at Onfleet, which means I get to work with our biggest and brightest customers on the day-to-day, helping them perfect their use of the software and optimize their delivery operations.
Excellent. And it seems like you had a firsthand experience of this being a bike messenger. Can you tell me how you started there and how you got to where you are today?
I was a bike messenger for the better part of a decade. Dealt with delivery in a couple other ways previous to that, but worked as a courier for a long time, grew into part ownership of one courier business that sort of blossomed and branched out into a ton of other things. Ended up working in a separate delivery software platform, and then as the as the bike messenger company was running at the time with a few other folks wound down, ended up working as like a coordinator and a contractor to help build delivery operations in the cannabis space in California in 2018, which was cool, but kind of insane. And when that year closed out, I, thought, gosh, I really, had been doing the software thing as well in tandem, but thought, maybe it's kind of time for me to dive headfirst into that and sort of get out of the day-to-day running of operations and just help other people, better run theirs.
That's really cool. And so I understand one of the key differentiators for Onfleet is just their focus on the customer. And for you being a part of the dedicated customer success team, it sounds like a big part of what you do is helping customers on their journey from deciding to join Onfleet, onboarding, and then how Onfleet can help them grow their business. Can you speak more about that process from your perspective of being pretty immersed in it?
Yeah, for sure. So more often than not for me, with the biggest customers, I tend to get them after they've had a very dedicated onboarding experience with one of our onboarding success managers. So more often than not, by the time they come to me, they're pretty well and ramped. They know the basics, and it's how do we how do we continue to drive efficiency and continue to deal with challenges as they scale as a business or as their business, their use of Onfleet scales, I guess. So we really get into a lot of high level problem solving and solutions, which is what I kind of enjoy the most. I mean, running a delivery business is hard. It's always challenging. And depending on specifically what kind of industry segment you're in, you have your own, set of unique challenges. And I think, one of the things for me that I found over the years of running delivery operations and then helping other people run theirs, it's sometimes it helps to have someone that, kind of knows what's going on, but also has a slightly outside perspective. I mean, when you're caught in the day-to-day of running a complex operation, it can be pretty easy to lose yourself, in the forest from the trees. And not to say that our customers aren't cognizant of what's going on. They surely are. It's just that sometimes an outside perspective can help. And I think for me, customer success is a ton of things, but what I really strive to be, aside from being a representative for Onfleet and also being, each customer's advocate here at Onfleet, is really fulfilling the role of kind of the trusted advisor, where I'm someone that you can rely on to help you do what needs to be done and help you make the right decisions and, not be overly biased. Your best interest is what I'm, looking to sort of deliver on. I think that's kind of what this role means to me. And I hope that's the experience that the customers that I work with sort of get out of that. And then there are customers at large that deal with success here at Onfleet.
Absolutely. Can you give any specific examples of, I guess, the unique challenges of running a cannabis delivery and the needs that you need to meet for your customers that might be different from, say, some place that's delivering prescription drugs or something like that?
Yeah, yeah. It's it can be hard even within a segment to bucket customers, but I think delivery operations in the cannabis space, state by state, they differ a little bit, but in California, at least one of the things that I've noticed, and some of this is starting to improve because the industry's growing and a lot of tools that everyone are becoming more mature. Uh, but those, if you're running one of those businesses, especially if it's slightly smaller, you're just inundated. You're wearing too many hats. A lot of the tools or platforms that you use don't always work well together or don't talk to each other. You spend a ton of time, like I guess your dispatchers and or like um, customer service reps spend a ton of time doing like manual data entry or copying from system to system. So at the end of the day, you're looking to cut down the redundant practices. Like, how do I just connect the dots between this system and Onfleet, or, outside of that, these two systems? And then just time and efficiency. Like, how do I minimize the amount of like jump time my drivers have to spend on the road? Like, how do I make sure that the vans are gassed before I send the drivers out, so they're not wasting 20 minutes trying to get to the gas station traffic, cutting down on time. So I think really it's like there is an inordinate amount of small to moderate issues that you're dealing with on the day to day, and they all sort of coagulate into this quagmire of, negative time that's impacting your efficiency. And it's like, for cannabis customers, it's like, how can I go in there and with the software or maybe just some personal insight from experience, help you chip away at some of those things, some of them small, some of them maybe a little bit bigger, and just make your day-to-day life easier and more fluid, and then like cut down on your costs and make everyone happy at the end of the day.
Definitely a good goal to have. Can you talk about the process of sitting with a customer of yours and figuring out the best way that Onfleet can integrate with their company's needs?
Yeah, I think it's usually a pretty elaborate discovery process for me. I mean, I do have a tendency to get lost in the details, maybe a little bit too much, but I think if that's sort of where we're at, generally by the time my customers come to me, either be it salesy, AE, and or one of our onboarding personnel has provided me with like a fair amount of insight into what's going on. But oftentimes I like to hear it, from the customer. There's the stuff that we already know that's on paper, but what's all the small details? Like, how does your operation work? Like, do you pre-schedule everything? Is everything just on demand? And then, to put your sort of, service level into those defined buckets is hard to do because most operations, in cannabis are somewhere in between. It's kind of scheduled, kind of on demand. And what's the difference? If something is scheduled like not very far in the future, it's basically on demand anyway. So understanding how that works, what are my customers' expectations, and, what do things look like on the ground in the day to day? Like, how many vehicles are you running in a location? How long do the drivers work? What are your constraints there? So it's sort of a deep dive into, connecting all the dots, like sort of the full picture. What does this actually look like? And then for me, as we're going through that in my mind, I'm kind of going through a checklist. Okay, well, this will work and this will work. Maybe we need to do this a little bit differently. Maybe there's this specific new tool that we have that can like help automate the assignment of things that sort of trickle in as the day goes on. If we already have these guys out there with pre-planned routes, like how do we mix the A with the B to make like the C that everyone wants? So yeah, it's sort of a deep dive. I like to look at all the details, even if I don't necessarily know to actually end up using them for the outcome. I just want to see the whole picture, with the whole enchilada, and let's figure out how to chop it up from there.
Yeah, that sounds like a really comprehensive way to get the job done. And I understand that for more complex operations, you are able to speak with your customers about how they can integrate Onfleet into their tech stack, into their overall system and workflow. Can you elaborate on that process?
Yeah. I think in, typically at most companies and even at ours, we do have dedicated technical resources. I think there's sort of a bridge that I generally provide there for most of my customers. I'm pretty tech friendly to a degree and very knowledgeable about our API. So, some lightweight to moderate, like kind of, solution planning I can help with. And then if they have a system they do need to integrate into the API, I'm, more often than not able to guide them on that process. Like, okay, well, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to automate? Is it just task creation? These are the endpoints we need to talk to. These are the different parameters we need to harness. These are the optional ones we need to include, is there other things we need to do? Do we need to understand about what kind of events are occurring? What webhooks would we use? We have this process that we want to automate where every time, we can't complete a task successfully, we want to recreate it for the next day, put it in this certain bucket so that our dispatchers know, how to address it. How would we go about creating that automation? So I think it's, more often than not, I'm able to help them through most of at least the first couple layers of that process to like, okay, this is what we need to work with. This is roughly the plan and the basic architecture. Let's start, building our integrations and working on the scripts. And when it comes time to iron out any nuances, either the coding or like the way, the rate in which we call Onfleet, then we can, loop in someone from our support team or another like solutions engineer to kind of help iron out the last pieces.
Got it. Yeah, all working together to figure out what the customer needs. And I'm sure in your experience, you've had some pretty big challenges that you've helped your customers overcome. What are some of these challenges that really make you proud, where you really got your problem solving hat on and figure something out? Obviously, without giving away any key names there.
Yeah, for sure. I'll try and tiptoe around any of the NDAs, but I think, there's been a couple instances where, really it's like we want to automate a process, and I think those are the instances where the thinking hat really needs to come on and the problems aren't always easy to solve. It's like, how would we automate assignment based off some really deep logic? How do we ingest information from Onfleet and then use it to make the determination about like the next step? I think those are usually the most challenging ones. We have a couple tools at, customers' disposal to make that happen, but it's sort of the steps in between. Like, how do we get from A to B? We know we want to like automate this assignment based off stuff, but how do we understand what that stuff is? And then how do we tell Onfleet how to do that? Without digging into like very, very customer specific details, that's probably a pretty good overview. But yeah, I think those are often the times when our customers come to us and, are looking for help, not only like what tool do we use, but how do we use it? Like one of the things we often hear is like, well, how do other customers do it? And we sort of walk a fine line between like, okay, well, there's very, very, individual customer specific processes that we don't want to speak to because that's their own sort of like, intellectual property. But, how can we bridge the gap between, I guess defining those sort of best practices at a very high level?
Yeah, that must feel incredibly rewarding. And it does sound like just your interactions with the customer are what make this fulfilling for you and also satisfying at the end of the day. And to that point, I heard you sign every email with your friend, Dave Yoha. Is that true? And where does that come from?
Yeah, that is true. It's something that I had been doing for years, like long previous to Onfleet. When I got here, I kind of slowly introduced it because I was concerned that, the people I worked with, what is this guy doing? This is a complete kook. Signing your friend. Day one I started doing that, I was afraid they'd be like, well, maybe we made the wrong choice. So I kind of slowly introduced that, but that was something that was sort of a not quite an ironic statement, but years ago with one of the courier companies, we had this, one of the arms of the company was a lot of restaurant delivery. And there was one like local chain that we were working with. And the woman that we dealt with was like a real tough cookie. And, I felt like she came to the relationship with this sort of bad attitude, and just treated us very adversarially. And I don't think that's actually a word, adversarially, but you get the point. But, the thought was like, how can I neutralize this? How can I make her understand that we're here to work with her? And, this isn't like a battle where we have the same goal. Let's just figure out how to make this work. And so I started signing off my emails to her and the folks at that company with your friend, Dave Yoha. And then after a while, it just stuck. And then, fast forward like 7 years later, for better or worse, still signing all the emails to your friend, Dave Yoha. If nothing else, it just makes me easy to remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good outlook, and always nice to interact with a friendly face when you're dealing with someone over email. So to those listening, you've heard it here now from your friend and now mine, Dave Yoha. Customer success is about understanding their business and how Onfleet will help. So Dave, thanks again for joining us today. And to everyone listening, thanks for your time as well.
No problem. Thank you so much.